Hey everyone, we are working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
All right, Steph, let's get this out of the way because the other thing that everybody wants to talk about is Caitlin playing off the ball. She sounds a little bit fed up already. This is what caught her eye this week.
Your off-ball usage that happens.
Yeah, your guys' two favorite questions: what I wear to practice and me playing off-ball basketball.
I don't want to ask
Go ahead.
about.
All right, so Steph, this is a basketball play. Why do you think so many people are, as you said, freaking out about this?
Well, I think fans are fans for a reason, right? Like they want to see their favorite players in a way that they've always seen them. I think that certainly when you understand basketball and you talk about basketball, it's at every level it requires a different version of the player, and at every level, every player is better. And I just think that the way that Caitlin gets played, it's unique. I mean, it's 94 feet, it's all the time, and for us to be able to free her up a little bit, we play her off the ball. I mean, you see it in the NBA all the time. Now, does that mean that she's not going to have the ball in her hands? No. Does that mean she's going to play off the ball every single possession? No. But when we have opportunities to be strategic about ways to ease the load on her body, and quite frankly on her mind, and get her some easier opportunities on second, third side of the floor, we got to do that.
You just watched that. You just watched Stephanie White stand in front of a microphone? Look the entire Indiana Fever fan base dead in the eyes and tell them that playing the most explosive, most marketable, most dangerous basketball player on the planet off the ball is, and I'm quoting directly here, not some revolutionary idea. Not some revolutionary idea. She said it like she was explaining to a toddler why you don't stick a fork in a socket. Calm, dismissive, completely unbothered by the fact that an entire fan base has been losing its collective mind over this exact topic for weeks. She didn't flinch, she didn't soften it. She doubled down with a smile and dared the room to push back. And that energy, that tone, that posture is everything you need to understand about the slow-motion disaster currently unfolding in Indianapolis. What is good, everybody? I'm Dre Fiver. This is Street Hoops, where we don't do spin, we don't do PR packages, and we definitely don't do coaching excuses dressed up in press conference buzzwords. We do the unfiltered truth. And the truth today is ugly, it is messy, and it smells like a front office that is one bad losing streak away from a full-blown implosion. So grab your drink, get comfortable, because we are going deep into the Indiana Fever situation. The roster cuts, the ticket drama, the coaching philosophy that has a passionate fan base ready to flip tables, and the one question nobody inside that organization seems brave enough to ask out loud: is Stephanie White the right person to be standing on that sideline when the ball tips on Friday night? Let's get into it. First, we need to establish the scene properly because context is everything. The Indiana Fever enter the 2026 WNBA season with what should be, on paper at least, the most exciting roster in the entire league. According to reporting from Heavy Sports, they brought key players back and signed several veterans, all with the explicit goal of building around Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. The money is being spent at a level this league has never seen before. As reported by Athlon Sports, Aaliyah Boston's 4-year, $6.3 million extension is the richest contract in WNBA history. Kelsey Mitchell is on a 1-year, $1.3 million Supermax deal. The franchise is investing. The pieces are theoretically in place. This should feel like a coronation in the making. Instead, it feels like the opening act of a very painful public divorce between the Fever organization and the fan base that built everything they have. Because here is the uncomfortable reality that no amount of hype videos, mic'd up sideline clips, or Instagram reels can paper over. The fans do not trust Stephanie White. And that distrust did not start this week. It did not start with the off-ball controversy. According to College Sports Network, when White moved Clark off the ball during the 2025 season, that decision did not sit well with the players' fan base or many of the team's broader supporters. They believed Clark was most dangerous with the ball in her hands, and that changing her role hindered her impact during the limited windows she was actually healthy enough to play. Now, heading into 2026, White is not backing down. She is doubling and tripling down on that same philosophy, and the internet is absolutely on fire. Now look, Dre has to give you the complete picture here because I'm not in the business of being dishonest with you. When you strip away all the drama and actually listen to what White is saying, there is a basketball logic underneath it. As reported by The Comeback, White explained her position this way. She said that the way teams defend Caitlin Clark is completely different from how they guard everyone else, and that getting Clark off the ball at certain moments is both a tactical counter to that defensive pressure and a form of load management to help preserve her over the course of a full 40-minute game. And look, that is not a crazy idea. This is not some lunatic philosophy being cooked up in a bunker somewhere. Clark gets physically harassed from the moment she touches the ball at half court. She gets bumped, grabbed, draped, and bodied up by the most aggressive perimeter defenders in the league on every single possession. The idea that occasionally relieving her of ball handling duties to get her a clean, off-movement look, that has genuine merit. As reported by Sports Illustrated, White framed the strategy this way during a league-hosted media call. She said the way opposing teams defend Clark is different from how they guard every other player, that it reflects the respect the league has for what Clark brings, and that using her off the ball at times is a way to alleviate that pressure, while simultaneously creating problems for defenses that are locked in on tracking her. And here is the part of this story that the loudest voices in the fan base are not fully acknowledging. Caitlin Clark herself is not at war with this strategy. According to College Sports Network, Clark addressed the media directly and said this: "We don't want to be predictable in what we do. It's difficult bringing the ball up 94 feet, but if my teammate is standing there not being guarded, why wouldn't I just pass them the ball? That's just unselfish play to me." She also made one thing crystal clear before the preseason opener against the New York Liberty. And as reported by Sports Illustrated, Clark told reporters flat out, "I'm going to be the primary ball handler. That's never going to change." So Clark is not staging a revolt. Clark is not leaking frustration to beat reporters. She is a professional who trusts the system she is operating in, at least publicly. But here is where Dre's personal opinion walks through the door and sits down uninvited. The problem with this situation has never been the tactical concept of occasionally playing Clark off the ball. Used correctly, in small doses, to create specific offensive advantages? I get it. Any student of the game can see the logic. The problem, the real structural, foundational problem, is the optics of how this philosophy has been communicated, the history behind why this fan base is already primed to distrust every single decision coming out of the Fever front office, and the spectacularly bad timing of choosing to roll out a public strategic pivot right before your season opener, when your ticket sales are already sending up distress flares. You do not announce that you are taking the steering wheel away from your Ferrari driver right before the race starts, and then look puzzled when the grandstands start booing. Now let's talk about the ticket situation, because this might be the single most damning data point in this entire story, and I need you to understand something. The numbers do not have an agenda. The numbers do not take sides. The numbers just tell the truth, cold and raw, whether you like what they say or not. As reported by BroBible, the least expensive ticket available for the worst seat inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse for the May 9th season opener currently costs $97. To sit just 11 rows off the court in Section 16 for that same game costs close to $900. And yet, as of that same report, more than one-third of tickets were still unsold, with less than 3 weeks to go before tip-off. The second and third levels were described as no less than 40% empty. Now, the Fever organization and its defenders would point out, correctly, that prices were set extraordinarily high for what is an extraordinary matchup. As reported by the Hawks Central, the opener features 4 consecutive #1 overall WNBA draft picks on the floor at the same time: Aaliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark, Paige Buchers, and Azzi Fudd. That is a generational showcase. On paper, that sells itself. But it is not selling itself. And that gap between expectation and reality is where the real story lives. As reported by Hardwood Heroics, speaking on his Fearless podcast, analyst Jason Whitlock put the situation bluntly and without mercy. He said, "The Indiana Fever, they're struggling to sell out their first home game of the season. They're struggling to sell tickets for Caitlin Clark. That's not a good omen. That's a sign that the WNBA is about to potentially crash and burn, that they've probably already burned up the goodwill that Caitlin Clark earned them." Now, Whitlock is always going to crank the alarm up to 11. That is his brand, I acknowledge that. He is professionally in the business of catastrophizing sports situations for dramatic effect. But here is the problem with dismissing him on this one. The data backs him up. The seats are empty, the prices dropped, the narrative around the season opener has shifted from excitement to anxiety, and when you connect that to everything else happening around this team right now, it is very difficult to argue that everything is fine. Now let's get to the roster cuts, because the way the story is being told by the loudest voices makes it sound like a front office in full panic mode. Players being thrown overboard from a sinking ship. Let's add some honesty to that narrative. As reported by Heavy Sports, the Fever officially waived 3 players ahead of the season opener: Megan McConnell, Jessica Timmons, and Kayana Traylor. These three were trimmed to bring the roster down to the active limit allowed under WNBA rules. On its face, this is routine preseason business that every single team in the league goes through without anyone batting an eye. But as the IX Sports reported, the reason this was straightforward is that Raven Johnson, the Fever's first-round draft pick out of South Carolina, had a terrific preseason and made a compelling case to claim a backcourt spot. With Shatori Walker-Kimbrough also providing veteran depth, the math simply did not work out for the Waves trio. According to the IX Sports, head coach Stephanie White described her reserve guard group as tough players who know how to get the ball moving and attack, which is genuine praise even if those players ultimately did not make the final cut. But here is what turned these routine cuts into a social media event. Caitlin Clark. As reported by Yahoo Sports, what caught immediate fan attention was Clark liking the team's official Instagram post announcing the waivers. A single Instagram like. That is all it took. One small, arguably instinctive digital gesture from a 24-year-old scrolling her phone, and it became national sports news within the hour. Because when you are the most watched player in the sport, and every single move you make, on and off the court, is being parsed for hidden meaning by millions of followers, nothing you do is small. Everything lands with the weight of a statement. And Dre's honest read? She probably liked the post the same way any of us like a colleague's workplace announcement without overthinking it. But the fact that it generated the coverage it did tells you more about the temperature around this team than it tells you about anything Clark actually intended. The fan base is so sensitized to every Fever development, so dialed in, so ready to read the tea leaves, that normal human behavior becomes headline material. Now let's get into the GM survey, because this dropped into an already volatile situation like a lit match into a powder keg, and I want to give you the full context before you form an opinion. As reported by Yahoo Sports, in the annual survey where WNBA general managers ranked the league's best players, Chelsea Gray claimed the top spot in the best point guard category with 73% of the vote, while Caitlin Clark came in second at 20%. And when GMs were asked who they would start a franchise with, Paige Buchers took the top spot at 33%, with Clark tying for second alongside Aja Wilson at 20%. As recently as last year, Clark led the franchise building category with 50% of the vote. Cut in half in 12 months. Now let me give you Dre's completely honest assessment of what this actually means. This survey is first and foremost a reflection of recency bias and availability. As Yahoo Sports reported, the primary driver behind the shift in Clark's standing is her 2025 season, where injuries limited her to just 13 games. You simply cannot evaluate a player's dominance based on a season where she barely stepped on the floor. Every GM in that survey knows that when they are voting, they are rewarding what they saw most recently, which means they are rewarding Paige Buchers' brilliant rookie year and Chelsea Gray's consistent excellence, while essentially penalizing Clark for the misfortune of a groin injury that nobody wished on her. But here is the dangerous part of this survey landing right now. At this particular moment, with this particular fan base already primed for conflict, it feeds the narrative. It adds another data point to the case being built, by fans, by commentators, by content creators all over the internet, that the league's establishment has never fully gotten behind what Caitlin Clark means to this sport. And whether that narrative is completely fair or not, it is gaining momentum, and the Indiana Fever are sitting right at the center of it. Now let's step back from the noise for just a moment and look at what the actual basketball showed us during the preseason. Because amid all this chaos, the product on the floor has been quietly encouraging, and I think that matters. As reported by College Sports Network, Clark shot 45% from the field and 45.5% from three-point range during preseason action. She averaged 13.3 points per game in just over 15 minutes per contest, essentially a point per minute. She looked healthy. She played through physicality. She moved fluidly on and off the ball. As College Sports Network also noted, White used Clark in multiple ways across possessions, which was key to generating high-efficiency looks for the offense as a whole. Those are not the numbers of a broken system. Those are not the numbers of a player being actively misused or sidelined from her own offense. Those are the numbers of a healthy, dialed-in Caitlin Clark, who has clearly put in serious work during the offseason and is ready to make a statement in year 3. And when you pair that with the broader context, a fully loaded roster, the richest contracts in WNBA history, a head coach with a Commissioner's Cup title already on her resume, the picture is actually not as bleak as the loudest voices are painting it. But here is what keeps me from going full optimist on this situation. The preseason is not the regular season. Nice shooting percentages in exhibition games are one thing. Executing a coherent offensive system against playoff-caliber defense, with the entire basketball world scrutinizing every possession, is something else entirely. And the Fever have a specific documented history, not just fan paranoia, but actual documented history of making philosophical decisions around Clark that backfired. The bulk-up directive, the injury, the limited games, the off-ball shift. Each one of those individually can be explained and rationalized. As a pattern, they are harder to dismiss. So where does all of this leave us as we stand on the doorstep of opening night? Let me give you the honest, unvarnished Dre Fiver summary. The Indiana Fever have a genuinely talented, genuinely motivated roster that, if healthy, has real championship potential. Caitlin Clark coming into year 3 fully healthy is a terrifying proposition for every other team in this league. Aliyah Boston is one of the most complete forwards in the game. Kelsey Mitchell is an elite scorer who showed she can carry an offense when she needs to. The pieces are there, the money is there, the stage is set. But the environment around this team is corrosive in a way that cannot be ignored. The disconnect between the coaching staff's communication style and what the fan base needs to hear is real, and it is widening. Every press conference becomes a minefield. Every strategic explanation gets read as an attack on Clark. Every roster move gets dissected for hidden meaning. And the ticket sales, which have always been the truest measure of the public's emotional investment in this team, are telling a story that no amount of promotional content can rewrite. Here is what I believe, and this is pure Dre talking now. Stephanie White needs this season to be the proof of concept that her tenure has been building toward. The 2025 season, for all its impressive moments, carries an asterisk the size of a billboard because Clark played in 13 games. This is year 1 of the real experiment. This is the first time we get to see White actually manage this roster at full strength, make real strategic choices, put her system to the test against playoff-caliber competition with the full arsenal available. If the off-ball concept works, if Clark's movement off screens creates the open looks and the defensive confusion that White is promising, then a lot of this noise gets quieter real fast. Results cure everything in professional sports. Always have, always will. But if the offense looks stagnant, if Clark looks constrained, if the team stumbles out of the gate and the losses start piling up, the firestorm waiting on the other side of that reality is unlike anything this franchise has faced before. The fans will not be patient. The media will not be gentle. And the ticket prices will not recover. The clock is ticking. The ball is about to be tipped. And Indianapolis is holding its breath. This is either the beginning of something historic or the most expensive, most visible, most painful wasted opportunity in the history of women's professional basketball in this country. There is very little room for anything in between. That is the state of the Indiana Fever as we stand here today. It is complicated. It is uncomfortable. It is not a simple heroes and villains story, no matter how hard certain corners of the internet want to make it. 1. Stephanie White is not the devil. Caitlin Clark is not a helpless victim of the system. And the Indiana Fever are not a franchise in ruins. Yet. But they are absolutely a franchise at a crossroads, operating under the kind of pressure that either forges champions or fractures organizations. And there is no neutral ground left to stand on. I am watching every game, I am tracking every possession, and I will be right here with the receipts, the breakdowns, and the truth, whether it vindicates the doubters or shuts them up completely. That is how we do it on Street Hoops. If this video gave you something to think about, smash that like button right now. It takes literally 2 seconds, and it tells the algorithm that real basketball analysis still matters. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know where you stand. Are you riding with Stephanie White through this storm, trusting the process? Or are you in the camp that says the Fever need to rethink everything about how they are deploying the most talented player in their franchise history before it is too late? There is no wrong answer. There is only your honest take. Leave it down below. And if you are not subscribed to Street Hoops yet, what are you even doing? Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications, because this Fever story is only getting louder from here. And you do not want to be the person who missed what is coming next. I'm Dre Fiver. This is Street Hoops. We'll see you on the next one.